Hello, I'm Nelson Ford from the Gunsmith in Phoenix, Arizona. We're going to do a couple Q&As. I enjoy these. I have to study for them. I've heard the pre-war models have a higher polish to them than later models. Any truth to that? Off the charts. You got me speechless. Almost off the charts. Um, the only thing I'm interested in anymore is peacemakers and pre-war Smiths, pre-World War II Smiths, and they're so different. They're so wonderful. You know, somebody was talking to me. Somebody called me about a hammer rubbing on one side or the other today, and what can I do about it? And I said, you can buy an early 1900s Smith. Make the same things, K-frames, N-frames, everything. And in very early 1900s, they put two little pins in them, positioning pins in the hammer and one in the trigger, and all they did is sit out 3/1000ths on each side, and they kept the parts centered in the gun. They don't even think no one even thinks like that anymore. Doesn't enter anybody's mind. The guns were so outrageous back then, and the way they made them. The dollar was powerful. When they say people worked for, 50 cents a day. 50 cents would buy you a bag of groceries like this. And you had an apartment that cost you $4 a month. And so the money was a lot different then. But people worked. You also had dedicated people. These are people that got on a ship and came across the Atlantic Ocean to make a better life for themselves and to get into an industrial plant where they were making something worthwhile. They were happy to be there. Every day was a wonderful day. And I think that's all been lost. Even people without a job have an iPhone and a big screen TV and get a check from the government. Back then, people had to make their own lives, and I think it was an entirely different thing. And so you had the love and care in the product. Of course, there was always going to be good people and bad people, but I think it was an entirely different group. And, my little brother's got a chicken restaurant, and he's just happy if people show up. Think about that. Say that out loud. Just happy if they show up. So the world is completely different now, and the money is the bottom line, not product. A lot of times it was product. People wanted the best product, and people lived for the best product. And I'm sorry to say I don't think we have that now. We have a lot of great things happening, and we should be very positive about American products, but people spending time polishing things and making things perfect, and the case hardening and the testing of the product, I don't think it's quite the same today as it was. And so yes, the pre-war models were stunning, and I recommend anybody that can afford to buy them and look at my video buying a used 1911, buying a used Smith revolver. There's great tips in there, and they'll save you a lot of trouble. I would love to see you go into detail on how to hand checker and see the tools you would use. That's not a job for everybody, but if you've got clear vision, good eyes, and you're strong and young, you can do it. The one thing that people don't get, and I'm going to lay it all out in a moment, I did a lot of 20-line prints checkering. I did a little 30. 25 wasn't really popular then. I think 25 is the way to go. But here's your 1911 front strap. And you start up towards the guard, down after the curve where it straightens out. And you start in there. I would start in there with my 20-line print checkering file. You have to have good vision and a good sense for trueness. You have to be able to see things that are wrong. And first of all, you just start getting your 20-line print all the way down to where the metal is now bottomed out on your checkering file. You can't go any further. And you'll feel it. It pushes really easy and smooth. And then you go down 2. I think there's 8 or 10 grooves in the file. You go down 2, and you make those deep until it slides easy. They're all the way down, and you do that all the way down the gun, because you can't just put in the pattern a little bit, and go back, because the lines will never be equal between each other. You have to go all the way down, 2 more, all the way down, 2 more, all the way down, and do it all the way down the gun. And then you go down one side and the other side, and you bring it down to the side. And you have to have a perspective in your mind of what needs to be, and you need to be able to see trueness with your eyes. And you pull that off, flip it around, do the other side, and now the hardest part takes place. You turn the whole frame this way in your vise. You pray, and then you start putting in your lines this way. And you just rub a few in, and if you see them starting right and they look true to your eyes, you make them deeper, and you keep going, and you keep looking, and you want to make sure they're right, because you have one chance to do this with 20 line per inch checkering. You can't go over it. You can't file it down and start over it. You have one try. And I know there's a guy out there named that I tried to explain this to, and he did a frame in my store, and I don't think he believed what I said. And he tried to lay out the pattern and then go over it and keep going. And if you don't have them all deep one direction, and you don't have it perfect the other direction, you're going to go through that frame trying to get them all sharp, because they're not going to become all sharp. They never will, unless you go just 2 at a time, all the way down, and take them buried to the end of the file. And then when you turn it, you get your lines straight on the other. If you're not happy, and you can tell right off the bat, you only go in about 15, 20 thousandths. You're not happy, you kind of file those off with an 8-inch mill bastard, and then you can just kind of start again. And I did this way, $200 a frame, and I would do them in an hour or 2 for years. And then I found out that EGW would start your pattern for you. They would put in the lines this way and the lines that way, and then you were secure, and you could go in and finish your checkering pattern, and that worked well. I don't know if EGW still does it. I still have my old 20 line per inch checkering files, and I use them for making what I used to call my speed button. I would take the original cylinder release latch on a Smith, and I would it had to have so much space between the screw head and where the cup started for the cylinder release latch, not the one since '96, but the ones prior to that. And we'd cut an angle and then cut checkering into it, roll the sides over, and make this wonderful little, what I call the speed button. And I still use those tools for that, and I do them for friends. I don't do it as a normal thing. Bring a bunch of Smith and Wessons for me to do. Become my friend, and I'll cut you some of them. Springfield now says all barrels are one-piece forged and have been for years. That's wonderful. I'm glad to hear it. They had sleeve barrels for years and years, most of my life. Remember, I opened my shop, and I don't think they made 45s for 13 years after I opened my store. And so they've only been making guns, I think, since 93 or 92. I know they sponsored Rob Latham as a shooter, and they should, because he's the best 1911 pure shooter. But I'm glad to hear that they're using a one-piece forged barrel, because only Colt was when I was first open and learning about these guns. I have a Ruger standard circa 1955, and I need someone who can replace the 6-inch barrel, which was damaged at the breech face over the years from dry firing. Is it possible you could recommend someone who could fit a new barrel? Thank you, Bill. The firing pin should have never been hitting the chamber. Should never have happened. You can, I think I have taken, if it's grabbing rounds going in, I think I have taken needle files and round needle files and clean the little indentation off. You don't need to change the barrel. You need to clean that up, and you need to get somebody on that firing pin. That firing pin should only be able to travel so far. And if it's hitting the back of the barrel, now you're talking about some woodsmen's, but not most, some high standards, but not all, and other all early, 22 automatics. But the Ruger was set up so that you could dry fire it, and that would never happen. And if it's hitting, somebody may have changed it. Firing pin is 1955. It's an old gun. Probably seen a lot of work. There's a spring in there. There's a keeper. If you lose the little metal tab in there and just put the spring in there without the metal tab, it'll have a lot less resistance, and that can make it hit the back of the barrel. There are a lot of things that could cause that, but the barrel is fine. And if the chamber's not totally whacked out, you can go in there and clean that up, but you don't even waste your time until you figure out what's going on with that firing pin, because it shouldn't be going out and hitting it. Shouldn't be doing that. And so that probably can be repaired. Let's see if there's another one in here. Great video, as always. Quality of S&W is bad today. They do not care. Sad. Some do, some don't. Smith and Wesson is a sum total of all the people that show up to work there, and there's going to be good and bad in there. And the people that are staring at the clock and want to leave, you don't want them there. They focus on their money makers. They probably sell 2 to 3 times autoloaders, then revolvers. So that's where the focus is going to be. That's a good response, Mr. Wizard, on that. But the 642s, that's a 38 special. The 632s, UCs, I see a lot of them. If we're going to do anything, I was told that you're supposed to hold the ball, down in the slot or up above or somewhere. We've been trained since childhood. I mean, I took out that Marlin 39 when I was 10 years old into the woods behind my house when I was this big. And I was told that the sights should all be about the same height. You line them up and you shoot. And if somebody's going to tell me in the U-notch I'm supposed to put the ball down here or up here or somewhere, okay, that's fine. I'm not going to argue with that. That's anybody's purvey or whatever. But I was taught that all the sights sit at the same height. And so if they just made the UC front sight because I've seen them low and I've seen them high in the last 2 weeks. I've had them out where they were shooting this high and about this low, same guns, same load. And so if they made a 180, a 200, and a 225, we could at least regulate a little bit so that the people that are still used to using the same sight height for all three, the ball and the sides, because when you bring a gun up and you go to shoot, you don't want to think, oh, the ball's got to be here. That's not good for your head. You need to do what you've done your whole life. Sights all the same height. And so hopefully they make different front sights for it. If they don't, people are going to have to do it on their own. And that's the biggest problem I see now. There have been some thick hands where trigger sticks to the rear because they have a 032 gauge coil diameter trigger return springs in, and that can be a problem. And they're still delivering them with 492 length firing pins, and they should really be going to 510 or whatever Bill Lowridge's firing pin is. There's another company that does it too, but Bill's a cylinder and slide, and I've been buying 20 and 30 and 40 different firing pins from at a time because I replace them in all the guns that don't have the firing pin on the hammer apart from the 22 revolvers. So UCs are a great idea. I love the 32 6-shot. I just got one like 2 or 3 days ago. It was an 1896 model made in 1901 because I'm not much for new stuff. And it was a 6-shot 32. And that's what the New York City police carried 125 years ago. And it was an I-frame. It's wonderful. Same as a J-frame, smaller trigger guard. shorter cylinder. And so that gun's been out forever. And so make it a winner. Make different height sights for it. Or people are going to have to go out and have them made for themselves. Great gun, hammerless, lightweight. It's got everything going for it. Make it some sights. You could probably have them made for 20 bucks and sell them for 50. People will be happy to buy them. So I'm going to leave it there with the question and answers. We got a dinner date we're going to go to. Thanks for watching, and send more questions.